Thank you, Madam Speaker. An honour to rise to participate in this debate. I want to start by sharing why this debate is so important. Across the country, 1.5 million folks with disabilities are living in poverty. It's about 40% of those living in poverty across the country. This summer, I was at St. John's Kitchen, operated by the Working Centre right downtown Kitchener. It's a gathering place for diverse folks across our community, and a lot of those who are living in poverty might be living unsheltered, at risk of homelessness. And time and again, I would be chatting with folks and felt like I had the same conversation over and over. I'd learned that someone is living on the Ontario Disability Support Program, and they'd share with me about how difficult life is living in poverty. And I'd start to share them a bit about this new Canada Disability benefit. But as I did so, they would learn that it's a maximum of only $200 a month. It's not starting until July of next year. And to access it, well, they had to apply for this disability tax credit if they didn't have it already. And okay, well, what's involved in that? Well, that's an 18-page form. How do I get that form, I would be asked. Okay, well, we got to find a way to print that and then find a doctor who's willing to complete 16 pages of that 18-page form. A doctor who might have done it before, because often the case is that if the doctor hasn't done it before, they're either unwilling or wouldn't know how to complete it. And time and again, I just felt exhausted realizing that these are people who almost have been provided a process designed for them to fail. So how did we get here? Well, this was a commitment from the Liberal Party in their platform in 2021. The quote from that platform: "This new benefit will reduce poverty amongst persons with disabilities in the same manner as the Guaranteed Income Supplement and the Canada Child Benefit." The minister at the time would later say that this was going to be a generational benefit. Quote, "The sleeper legacy piece if we do it right." And after community pressure from the disability community, letters both in this House and in the Senate, that led to Bill C-22 getting introduced. It was then improved at committee. Glad to have worked with colleagues to have secured 5 improvements that came from the disability community, including requiring that the benefit be indexed to inflation, including requiring that the disability community be meaningfully engaged in the process of the regulations where almost every important decision was left to, and including one that would require that the benefit application process be barrier-free. Now, sadly, we had also attempted to extend the benefit for those over the age of 65. That was ruled out of order and continues to be a significant point of contention that a person's disability does not end at 65, and neither should the Canada Disability benefit. But as I mentioned earlier, almost every important decision was left to the regulations. And that's what we learned about just a few months ago after learning in the budget that the governing party was proposing just this maximum of $200 a month behind the disability tax credit, and not till July of next year. At the time, what I shared in this place is it just felt so unserious. It felt to me like that this government was playing politics with the lives of people who had been marginalized for a very long time. With the rest of my time, what I'd like to do, though, is just provide solutions of what we could still do with the remaining time in this Parliament to fix the Canada Disability benefit. It's included in the regulation I submitted that was required just a few weeks ago. There are 7 specific items that could be addressed in the Canada Disability benefit, all of which come directly from the disability community. The first is just remove the barriers to the application process by automatically enrolling folks who are already on provincial and territorial and federal programs, including CPP-D, and get rid of the barrier that is the disability tax credit. Here's what Catherine, a person with a disability, shared with me this summer. Quote, "Requiring those who may be eligible for the CDB to apply or reapply for the benefit will put significant strain on the already overworked healthcare professionals who have patient loads so large that paperwork issues are frequently placed as a last priority item by these professionals and will cause significant delays in the delivery of the benefit to those who need it the most." Well, Catherine's right. Here are the stats. The CRA reports that in 2022 alone, they received over 133,000 phone calls from folks having issues accessing the disability tax credit, and only 600 of those calls got redirected to navigators that could help the person. If the DTC is to be used at all, it should only be used as another method of getting access, an optional, additional item in addition to provincial programs like ODSP and federal programs like CPP-D. Second, remove this second barrier that is another new application process so that a person doesn't have to have both the DTC and apply a second time. In fact, in the regulations, what they state is that this is going to be an additional application for those who have the DTC, and it's going to have to be repeated if the person ever needs to reapply for the DTC. Just get rid of that application altogether and have it as an opt-out so that folks with disabilities who have already been assessed through other programs, federally or provincially, would directly have access to the Canada Disability Benefit. Third, and really importantly, we should be supporting the independence and dignity of an individual person with a disability by means testing to the individual's income and not family's income, as the regulations currently propose. Extend to Family Waterloo Region, an organization serving folks with disabilities in my community, referred to this measure as, quote, dehumanizing in their June letter to the minister. Michael, from my community, who lives with a disability, here are his words. Quote, one of the many issues for disabled people is they often get trapped in abusive relationships due to income levels. One cannot escape and set up an independent life free of abuse when they have no or extremely limited income of their own. Expecting a person's spouse or partner to completely support them not only adds to the stress of the relationship, but gives an abusive partner a way to trap and control them. End of quote. The federal government should acknowledge that folks with disabilities should have the independence of means testing to their individual income alone. Fourth, probably one of the most important, is increase the maximum amount to actually lift people above the poverty line. Here are the numbers we have already. StatsCan reports the low-income measure for the after-tax threshold is just over $28,000 for an individual and over $40,000 for a couple. In Waterloo Region, my community, the market basket measure is about over $26,000 and $37,000 for a couple. Well, ODSP in Ontario, for example, is just over $1,300 a month, less than $16,000 a year. And there is not a single provincial or territorial program for folks with disabilities that when you add $200 from the CDB, even if a person qualifies for the max amount, that would lift that person above the poverty line. Words that were shared with me from Chad this summer, $200 a month isn't going to do much for disabled Canadians. It's clear that the maximum benefit amount is insufficient and should be the true supplement that was originally proposed, that with provincial and territorial programs would lift someone above the poverty line. Fifth, raise the income threshold as it stands right now. When a person makes more than $23,000 a year, which is below the poverty line, the CDB is going to get rolled back. That amount should obviously be above the poverty line, taking into account, ideally, the additional costs that a person with a disability incurs. Six, we need to fast-track the benefit. And this is where so many folks in the disability community have called out that this government moved quickly on CERB. They could do it again here. The disability community has called it the Disability Emergency Response Benefit, to move quicker with a benefit of some kind. Now they could at least move quicker with the Canada Disability Benefit and put it into force more quickly as well. And so to close, to colleagues from all parties, we have a moment here where this still could be addressed. The governing party could use this as a moment to demonstrate to Canadians that this is a signature priority of theirs in either the fall economic statement or the budget. My colleagues in other parties could demand this of the governing party for their support in this minority parliament. And as Greens, we're going to continue to prioritize it, because the fact is that the disability community has been unwavering in telling us that this government what they must do. Now's our chance to listen.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I think it is important to recognize that the government has put this as a priority, as a signature priority issue. For the very first time ever, we actually have a national program. Over $6 billion was allocated for it. That's the single largest budget increase on a line. The question I have for the member is that when we talk about the $200 a month, and we've had clear indication that this is a very good, solid first step, how much money does the member believe we should be providing a month? He inferred $1,000. Does he actually have a tangible amount that we can take back and get some sort of a cost analysis done?
The Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At minimum, this government should follow through on what it promised to do, which was model it after the Guaranteed Income Supplement, which is about a $15 or $16 billion a year program. The $6 billion we hear cited by the governing parties over 6 years, so it's actually only $1 billion a year. The amount, as I mentioned in my speech, should be enough to supplement provincial and territorial programs above the poverty line, whether that's, for example, taking the market basket measure in Waterloo Region, it would amount to just over $1,000 a month or so. And we sum that up in a way that does end up being a significant generational program. They can find the money for it if they didn't give billions for carbon capture and storage, billions to fossil fuel companies across the country. Those are the dollars we could be getting to folks with disabilities who need it the most.
The Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank my colleague across the aisle there for his speech. The Liberal government made a big deal about doing something for the disabled, but instead of listening to the disabled community who were asking for $1,300 a month, they came with a benefit that was $200 a month. And at the same time, they jacked up the carbon tax so that groceries cost $700 more per year, and the cost of housing was doubled under this government. And so essentially now disabled people are even worse off, and they seem not to do anything about it. Does the member agree that they've made things worse, not better?
The Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to start by recognizing that the member for Sarnia-Lambton was one of the very first to join the letter I mentioned that we initiated, a number of parliamentarians early on in this session, to ensure that we had MPs from all parties who were advocating. Liberal Party, Conservative, Bloc, NDP, and Green joined in on that letter, and she was a really critical part of that. If we're going to be honest, though, about the rising cost of living, I have to be clear, it is corporate profits that are the main element of it. And I know she likes talking about removing the carbon rebates, but there are no rebates on the gouging of the oil and gas industry. And we look at price at the pumps for folks in my community and hers, while the carbon tax went up 2 cents a litre, the profits of the industry were 18 cents a litre. If we want to make life more affordable, that's where we should be focusing our time, getting those dollars to folks with disabilities and others living in poverty who need it the most.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I congratulate my colleague on his very interesting speech. It's clear that he takes this very seriously and is knowledgeable. Sometimes, though we may not sit on a particular committee, we can take interest in a file and make a difference. His comments were very constructive and helpful. What he said could help those living with disabilities. In fact, Madam Speaker, my son has a disability, so this debate is important to me. It's meaningful to me, and we hope that the government will be more ambitious and more generous. I'm not trying to make people feel bad for me and my family, but some people lead very difficult lives, have to make a lot of sacrifices, and they don't want to always have to fight to be supported by the government. They want the same quality of life that we all enjoy. Thank you to my honourable colleague and friend, the member for Les Patriotes Verchères, Pierre Boucher. Thank you for his comments. And through you, Madam Speaker, I would like to tell him that we all have the opportunity to use our platform here to take things further. The bloc supported C-22 at every stage. The bloc now has the power to have its demands upheld by this minority government. We need to fix the disability benefit. That could be one of their main asks of the government.